So here's a big question for you. Are you really in control of your life? Or is society, kind of pulling the strings? It's one of the biggest debates in sociology, and today we are jumping right in. Are we just puppets dancing to a tune we didn't write? Or are we the ones calling the shots? Let's figure it out.
So let's make it personal. Who is actually in charge of your life? I mean, really think about it. The clothes you're wearing, the career you're chasing, even what you had for breakfast. Are those choices 100% yours? This is the core question we're going to unpack together. All right, first up, let's take the view from way, way up, like 30,000 feet. This is what we call the macro or structural perspective. It's the idea that society is this enormous, complex machine, and we're all just, cogs helping it run. The main idea here is something you could call social gravity. Structuralists believe society is this huge, invisible force that exists outside of us, but it's constantly pulling on us, shaping our every move. To understand why we do things, you don't look at us as individuals, you look at the entire system we're living in.
And within this big picture view, there are two major ways of seeing things. On one side, you've got thinkers like Emile Durkheim. They see society like a human body. All the different parts, like family and education, work together in harmony to keep the whole thing healthy and stable. On the other side, you've got people like Karl Marx, who saw society as a constant battle between the rich and powerful and everyone else. But here's the key takeaway. Whether they see harmony or conflict, both theories agree that these massive structures are what's really in the driver's seat of our lives.
Okay, but what if that's not the whole picture? What if there's another way to look at this? Let's zoom all the way in, from that bird's eye view right down to the ground level, to what happens in our face-to-face, everyday lives. And that brings us to something called symbolic interactionism. This theory completely flips the script. It says society isn't some giant force pushing down on us. No, society is something we build together every single day. It's created in our conversations, our text messages, our inside jokes, and all the little ways we interact with each other. We aren't the puppets, we're actually the puppet masters. I love this quote from George Herbert Mead, who was a pioneer of this idea. Think about it. When you have a conversation, you don't walk in with a script, right? You react and improvise in the moment. Our social world is being created and recreated constantly, not just followed like a set of rules.
And this brings us to a really important word: agency. Agency is simply our ability to think for ourselves and make our own choices. Interactionists argue that even when society hands us a rulebook, we're constantly reading between the lines, interpreting it, and deciding for ourselves how we're going to play the game. We have a say.
Okay, so if we have this agency, how does it actually work? I mean, inside our own heads, how do we balance what we want to do with what we feel we're supposed to do? Well, there's a really cool way to break this down. George Herbert Mead gave us this fantastic model. He said our self is kind of split into two parts. You have the I, that's your gut reaction. It's spontaneous, impulsive, creative. It's the unfiltered you. But then you have the me. The me is your internal editor, your social conscience. It's that little voice in your head that's always asking, wait, what will people think if I do that? It's the part of you that's learned all the social rules. And this example makes it super clear. Imagine you accidentally touch a hot stove. The I is that pure instant reaction. Ouch! You pull your hand away without thinking. That's universal. But what happens next? That's the me stepping in. Your actual reaction gets filtered. If you're a little kid, you might burst into tears. If you're at work, you might just grit your teeth and try to play it cool. Same painful event, but the me customizes the response based on the social situation. So if our actions depend on who we're with, that leads to another really powerful metaphor. A sociologist named Erving Goffman had this brilliant idea that we can understand our whole social world by thinking of it as a play.
Of course, you know this famous line from Shakespeare. It's the perfect setup. Goffman basically took this beautiful metaphor and turned it into a full-blown way of understanding society. We're all actors playing different roles all the time. We're a student in one scene, an employee in the next, a friend later that night.
Goffman called this whole process impression management. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Think about going on a first date or a job interview. You're carefully choosing your clothes, thinking about what to say, how to sit. You are actively managing the impression you want to make. You're performing the part of the perfect candidate or the perfect date. And we do this constantly, usually without even realizing it.
And what's so fascinating is that it's a two-way street. We're not just actors on the stage, we're also the audience.
watching and interpreting everyone else's performance. Our whole social life is just this huge, continuous, unscripted play that we're all a part of. So, if we're all interacting, performing, and interpreting each other, what are the consequences of all that? This is where our interactions become incredibly powerful, because the way we see and define other people can actually shape who they become. This is called labeling theory, and it's a huge idea. The basic concept is that when we stick a label on someone, like smart kid, class clown, or troublemaker, that person might actually start to see themselves that way and then act the part. In a weird way, the label itself can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. This quote from Howard Becker just nails it. Think about it for a second. He's saying that no action is naturally bad or deviant. It only becomes deviant when a group in society with enough power decides to label it that way. The power is in the label. So how does this actually happen? It starts with an idea called the looking-glass self. Basically, we don't form our identity in a vacuum. We see ourselves reflected in the eyes of other people. We imagine how they judge us, and then we develop feelings about ourselves, pride, shame, confidence, based on what we think we see in that reflection.
And this is how a label can become a reality. It leads directly to a self-fulfilling prophecy. If a teacher constantly tells a student they're brilliant, that student will likely gain confidence, work harder, and, well, become brilliant. But the opposite is also true. If a kid is constantly told they're a bad seed, they might just give up trying to be good and lean into the role they've been given. The prediction actually creates the outcome.
So we've come full circle. We've seen that we live inside these big social structures that definitely guide us. But we've also seen that we have the power, the agency, to interpret our world, to perform, and even to label it. Society might provide the stage and a rough outline of the script, but at the end of the day, you're the actor. So the final question is really for you. Now that you know how the play works, what part are you going to choose to play?